As a pediatric OT, I see parents make the same mistakes over and over again because they're basing their parenting on three big misconceptions around sensory needs. These mistakes aren't just frustrating, but they're actually chipping away at your child's self-esteem and emotional resilience. I'm Lisa, a child behavior expert and a parent coach. I have over a decade of experience as a pediatric occupational therapist. I help parents feel empowered in their journey in raising a child who has sensory needs, who is on the spectrum, or who may have ADHD. I give you science-backed strategies and tools to help you feel confident in supporting your child's development. Through the right knowledge and tools, you will feel confident in raising a resilient and confident child who thrives at home, school, and in life. So raising a child with sensory needs has its many challenges. You might have a child who is overly sensitive to different textures, to clothing, to the foods that they eat. They might really complain over sounds or bright lights, or maybe they just have so much energy. They're constantly seeking sensory input, and it's causing a lot of disruption in your day-to-day. I've worked with countless families who reached out to me because their child's sensory needs were impacting their day-to-day functioning. Just starting off in the morning was a complete battlefield, trying to get their child out of bed, to brush their teeth, to get changed, to come downstairs and to eat breakfast. Those basic things were causing so much friction and tension in family homes, and it was creating a lot of stress on parents just to get through the morning routine. Now, these families, they also struggled with so many other aspects. Some would complain that, just going out to a public gathering was so stressful. There was just so much involved in getting their child to go out. There often was lots of meltdowns and pushback on going to these events. So many of these parents would tell me that they had to cancel so many plans, so many trips, so many outings because their child just was not feeling it, was pushing back really hard, having meltdowns, and they would just cancel it all together, ruining, family vacations and things like that. And it was creating just a lot of stress and tension in the family dynamic. People were feeling very resentful towards the one child. Siblings would get really upset and jealous that things always had to go their siblings' way, never my way. And that was really the crux of a lot of the arguments that were happening in these homes. It can feel, especially if you're raising a child with sensory needs, that their sensory sensitivities or challenges is what's controlling the whole family dynamic. Everything is based off of your child's sensory, and because of that, it feels like nobody has a say except your one child with their sensory needs. And in a lot of cases where there are other children, so you might have more than one, that your child who doesn't have sensory needs often gets overlooked. Their needs are often not met because your sensory child's needs are often the priority, because it feels like you're constantly putting out a fire here, that your other child's needs are just pushed aside because they're able to tolerate, they're able to kind of accept the situation, and they're often neglected in the process of all of this. And this is making you feel so guilty. You feel guilty on one end that your one child's having such a hard time and you don't know how to support them, give them what they need. And on the other end, you have your other children who just feel like their needs are never being met. They're often neglected, and it puts you in a position where you just don't know what to do. It feels like you just want all of these sensory problems to go away. And that's why you're likely here searching for an understanding of what's going on and how to shift your own perspective. So let's get into the three common misconceptions around your child's sensory needs. Once you start understanding it, you're going to have way more clarity about what's going on in the moment and what you need to start doing instead to support their needs. So misconception one is that your child has full control of their behaviors. So when your child is experiencing discomfort because of the sensory input, they start to complain, whine, they start to push away, they say, no, I don't want to eat that, I don't want to do this. Now, those behaviors can come off as sometimes bratty. Sometimes it feels like they're doing that on purpose and they're just trying to be manipulative using these types of behaviors. But the truth is, when your child has sensory needs, they have a sensory processing difference, a disorder, the way they're processing information through their senses is different. So they actually feel more intensity. If something is uncomfortable, like the tags on their clothes, or the food you're serving them feels too mushy for them and they're complaining all about that, their bodies are actually sensing that that texture is uncomfortable. It's actually sending a signal from their mouth, from their hands to their brains, telling them that whatever this texture is, it is very uncomfortable for me. It's actually feels very unsafe, and it's setting off their nervous system. And it's a response now that they are pushing back. These behaviors are amplifying. They might even be melting down because their nervous system is telling them that I need to flee. I need to run away from this because my body does not feel safe. And it puts them into a survival mode. So instead of seeing this as defiance, as just manipulation, think of it more as a stress response. It's not that your child wants to give you a hard time with all of these behaviors, but it's actually they're having a hard time processing the sensory input and feeling comfortable. So if your child is hypersensitive to textures, just think of it as they have a very low tolerance to that input. And so if they have a low tolerance, and this is where baseline is, they want to remove themselves from that environment, from whatever it is that's making them feel uncomfortable, to help them get back to baseline. So that is the stress response that they're experiencing. And if we can shift that mindset that we have, that, our kids are acting a certain way, and yes, it might feel like they're doing that on purpose, but underneath it all, it is all a nervous system response. And until they feel safe again, they don't have full control of their behaviors. Misconception number 2 is that they will grow out of it. So while some sensory sensitivities will shift over time just because they're developing, they're aging, not all sensitivities are just going to go away or fix itself. When we hope that their sensory sensitivities are just going to fix itself, we end up missing opportunities to give them the support that they actually need. So when they're young and we're not searching for support, we're not learning about what it is that I can do as a parent to help my child feel more comfortable and learn about their sensitivities and learn about accommodations, then we put our kids under a lot of stress. And if they're constantly in stress because they don't know how to tolerate, they don't know how to, manage what's going on in their environment, then they're going to grow up with constant stress. And as they get older and their sensitivities are still there, now they're in a position where they haven't learned any tools. It's been years upon years of stress and people misunderstanding them, right? The more we don't find the right support and the more that you don't know what's going on, the less advocacy that they're going to have. When they go to school, they might not have teachers or staff who are going to understand what's actually going on, that they're going to be struggling. And if they're struggling for years on end and they get to a point where they're older and they're still struggling, now we're needing to unpack so many years of lack of support. And now reteaching our kids, so what do I need to do now? How do I start advocating for myself on what I need? And as your child continues to experience that discomfort, they start to feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with me, right? They're going to notice the other kids around them who don't experience these types of discomforts. They're not complaining that the light's too bright or that it's too loud in the classroom or those textures are uncomfortable. They're going to start internalizing that I think there's something wrong with me and no one seems to understand where I'm coming from. This often isolates our kids, making them withdraw from other people, making them feel like because there's something wrong with me, then it's me against the world. And that type of mentality can be very detrimental on your child's mental health long term. So it's so important to recognize that your child's sensory needs, it may not change. And if you're noticing challenges today, that's when you need to start finding support today. get them the help that they need so that they feel heard, they feel seen and supported and not misunderstood, because that's going to give them the tools that they need to manage all of this in the real world one day when they become young adults. Misconception number 3 is that our sensory kids just need more discipline. They need tougher consequences. Now, this one is seriously wrong. When I see, people who do not understand where sensory challenges are stemming from, and they come from a place of, I think I just need to put my foot down harder, because if I'm giving my child these foods and they don't want it, then I need to force it down because they need to eat. They need to listen and take what it is that I've given them. But the problem with this is that using these traditional disciplinary techniques like punishments and threats, or even like using timeouts and grounding because their behaviors are escalating from their sensory sensitivities, it's not actually getting to the root issue of how they're processing their sensory world. This can often increase feelings of shame and worthlessness and cause more dysregulation. What we see in kids who come from families that the families do not understand their child's sensory needs, we see so much dysregulation, lots of meltdowns and aggressive behaviors because that child does not feel supported. And when it's being challenged with a parent who's using tough consequences, harsh punishments, right, trying to crack down on that child to control them and try to get, the good behaviors out of that child to listen, it ends up creating a very volatile dynamic of child feeling very pressured and in defense mode, and then parent coming down on them, and it ends up becoming a back and forth power struggle. But instead, what you need to do is really focus on building long-term emotional regulation, helping your child to understand the emotions that come up whenever they are feeling like things are overwhelmed because of the sensory input. Are they feeling the anxiety? Are they feeling the overwhelm, the frustration from whatever that sensory input is, and getting them to recognize it? Also, your role is really to be their co-regulator. So when they are spiraling because they're so uncomfortable and they're melting down, staying calm and regulated yourself is so key in helping your child learn how to regulate their own emotions in that moment, right? So if they're so uncomfortable because they just came home from school, it was, school's always going to be a very busy place where there's lots of stimuli from the classroom environment. There's lots of noise from the other kids, lots of social interactions going on. Your child comes home after school and they're going to feel more irritable because they just had a really busy, packed day. Now, they might melt down because of that and have a collapse, or what we call an after-school restraint collapse, where they kind of release the mask and everything comes spewing out. But in that moment when they're spiraling, knowing that that's a meltdown caused by sensory overload, your role is to stay calm and regulated. Recognize they're having a hard time. Don't take it personally, and be their calm, grounded person who can really sit with them through those tough emotions and feelings that they're experiencing. Also, knowing what kind of sensory accommodations is going to make a world of a difference. If you know that your child gets overstimulated by loud noises, they get triggered by you blending something or vacuuming, offering them things like a noise-canceling headphone will be extremely helpful in reducing the meltdowns. Having sensory fidgets can also be helpful during times where they're going to be going out into a space that will feel overstimulating for them and they just need something to help them calm down. Little fidgets like little pop tubes, or there's tubes that kind of go open and close like this, or it could just be maybe a soft texture, or even some kids really like the feeling of a rock because they can just smooth their thumbs all over it. And those little things, those tools, it's going to be specific to your child's needs. So, these recommendations I'm making may not work for your child, but you have to understand how to find the right tools that are going to work for your specific child. So I know navigating your child's sensory needs and knowing what is going to work for them can feel very overwhelming, and you're not alone in this. Parents who raise kids with sensory challenges, it is a tough journey because they process the world differently. They experience things more intensely than other kids. And so you have to know how to support them when they're feeling so uncomfortable and so overstimulated. So to help get you started, I created a sensory overwhelm toolkit. So this is going to help you to understand your child's different sensory systems and help you pinpoint which areas your child is hypersensitive to and what kind of strategies you can start implementing to help them. This download is available for free. You can check it out in the description box below. Now, if you want more resources, more tools around sensory needs, you can subscribe to my free newsletter. I send out newsletters every week and there's always different topics. You can even directly message me when you receive these emails if you have questions. So if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my newsletter. I'm going to link that below as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.